I'm JinJa Birkenbeuel.
And I'm Esther Ikoro, and we're the hosts of the Honest Field Guide podcast.
Entrepreneurship is no joke. The journey is full of anticipation, failure, hope, and disappointment. You'll make money and be totally broke at the same time.
The Honest Field Guide podcast tells you the truth.
We know being an entrepreneur is crazy hard, and you will sometimes cry at dinner. Listen in to be inspired, laugh, and learn how to really thrive on your business journey.
Hi, JinJa.
Hey, Esther.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Today's a pretty big day for us.
It is such a big day.
What?
And, we're doing something completely different. We're starting our new series and our new season on a completely new foot. Why are we doing that? What's happening today, Esther?
Today we have our first guest on the Honest Field Guide podcast. We have
Tena Clark.
The amazing Tena Clark.
Wow, I don't even know where to go from there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal. I mean, this is the first time we've had a guest, and it was so important that we had you on the show because you are such an inspiration to me, to Esther, and to so many people.
Well, first of all, I'm humbled. And second of all, that's so sweet. And third of y'all couldn't find anybody better?
You are better. So just briefly, I want to just, read a little introduction about you, Tina, since this is such a special day for us, our debut of a guest. Tena Clark is the CEO and Chief Creative Officer for DMI Music and Media Solutions, the company that you envisioned over 20 years ago. A creative pioneers, DMI was at the forefront of entertainment and music marketing, from creating a brand's unique sound and driving audio strategy to developing a brand campaign around major entertainment property. DMI's original music production, music licensing services, and live events development connects brands to their consumers through the power of music. I love that. That's amazing. Why don't I would love to just sort of start this off by hearing in your own words, what is DMI to you? Because I also should mention, I mean, you're a woman that wears many hats. I mean, you're an author of an amazing book called Southern Discomfort, a memoir, which you just released. You're an entrepreneur. You're a songwriter. You're a musician. You're a mother.
You're not officially a person who's done a talk at Google.
Exactly.
Yes.
Just did a talk at Google, which is amazing. So talk a little bit, though, about DMI Music and, why in the world did you start DMI?
Well, that's a great question because it was a need at a time, I felt like, to stay relevant and stay alive in music. In 1996, I started the company in 1997. And up to 1997, I had never done anything but write and produce music for film, for television, for records, for commercials, etc. Stage. It was about at the time where the internet really came to the forefront of everybody's mind in the music business. Not that it wasn't there before, but it got really serious. It was Napster. It was this. It was that. And so it was like, okay, I mean, half of my colleagues were saying, run for the hills. The music industry's over. The other half said, oh, it's fine. It's not going to change anything in the music business. Well, at the time I was partnering with Miles Copeland, who Miles discovered the Police, and he managed Sting for many, many years, many decades. And Miles was a powerhouse, and he also used to manage me, but then we decided we were going to start a label together. And then I also was producing special projects, meaning producing as a music producer, for Miles's other label. Well, that's what I was doing at the time. And then I'd been with him for a couple of years, and all of a sudden this kind of epiphany of what was going on around me in the music business. And it wasn't like run for the hills to me, but it wasn't like also that nothing's going to change, because I knew it was. At least I felt that in my gut. Well, all I cared about, selfishly, I have to say, as far as my career, was I didn't know anything but music, and I just wanted to keep doing music. So if everything changes and I can't really write and produce the way I always have, and if certain areas are going to dry up, and what do I know? Where is there a supply and a demand? And I think with any career in business that you're looking at, especially from an entrepreneur. You can have a great idea, but you got to really look at what is the supply and demand. What is missing? What is the missing link in an industry that you feel like you can fill? And for me, that was with brands, because I had enough knowledge from being a music production house for Leo Burnett in Chicago for many years that was a small, tiny sliver of my career. But at the same time, I felt like I knew enough about branding to be dangerous. And what I did know from all the campaigns I had worked on is through all my career in the music business, it was really a faux pas for artists to be connected with the brand. Those were the days that you were looked at as a has-been, or you were looked at as a sellout, or whatever, if you did anything for a brand and connected to a brand. So nobody wanted anything to do with brands. But brands, obviously, they wanted to be connected with artists. But if they did get an artist to do anything with them, they paid them like ridiculous amounts of money. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, it wasn't an equal playing field.
But how did you, I mean, the thing that I'm really curious about, I mean, that's awesome that you talked about being an early pioneer in, brand strategy and brand development as far as music is concerned. I have a band, Utah Carol, and we didn't start off doing music for advertising and film at all. We started doing music because we had a band and we were writing for ourselves and we went on tour and things like that. But what I'm kind of curious about is at what point did you realize that you were going to start a business, though? Because, you obviously were a musician. You must have been writing songs as a child. I mean, how did you convert this creative spirit into something that is monetized in terms of a business? Because that's a place where a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble. Is how do I get my creativity out there in a way that I can make money? It's a hard thing to do. How did you do it?
Because it was what I was saying. It was about supply and demand. So when I looked at that need there, and I thought, okay, artists are not going to have the promotion money they would normally have because everything's changing. So labels are going to start just putting their promotion money into their biggest artists. But now they're not going to be out there taking risk on all of these other artists giving promotion money. Things are going to dry up really fast. There's going to be a climate change. Mm-hmm. And therefore, when I look at brands who have tons of money that want the artist connection, that's going to be their promotion. Mm. So my vision was to connect consumers to brand, really get the science behind this, mm-hmm. to connect consumers to brands through the emotional power of music. So that's where we started. And the first client I ever had was one of those things where, you hear that joke about, the Chihuahua that's always chasing the car. Mm-hmm. And then what does the Chihuahua do when it catches the car? Mm-hmm. I mean,
what does the Chihuahua do when it catches the car?
Well, it's just bit off more than it can chew. Or it gets run over. So our very first client, and we were tiny. I mean, I had just opened the company. But the guy at the time who was the head of Leo Burnett, I told him about my idea. I had a pitch for United Airlines. I was here in Chicago, where we are right now. Mm-hmm. And he said, I want to set you up a meeting with United Airlines. I want them to see your pitch.
Wow.
Because I'd created a pitch for United.
How did you get in that room to have that opportunity?
With United?
I mean, yeah. I mean, even with Leo Burnett. I mean, what conditions existed that you were present in the room? And I ask you this because you're a woman. Mm-hmm. You're out gay. How did you get in a space where you were believed at the table that you could deliver? How did that happen? Because a lot of us in this space, I'm African-American, Esther's African-American, we're both women, and we have challenges around sitting in a room and people look at us and they believe what we're saying, So what was that like?
Well, how I got in, I'll take you back for a minute. How I got into Burnett was I had moved to Nashville from Mississippi to write. But on the side, I happened to manage this African-American male artist, to me, who was the best male artist in R&B I'd ever heard in my life.
What was his name?
His name was Tony Warren. You've never heard of him. He was from Mississippi. I knew him in Mississippi. I brought him to Nashville with me, and I knew I wouldn't get him a deal in Nashville, but I knew eventually I would get to LA. But I was trying to get him any gig I could at the time. And so in Nashville, because there were not any black, really, R&B singers there at that time, somebody called me and said, Leo Burnett is in town. They're shooting some McDonald's commercials, and they need a black male artist for this commercial to sing. And what about the guy that you manage? I said, oh, that would be fantastic. So I go, I take them, they hear him sing, they love him. I go in the studio. There's a really big Nashville recording producer in there. He produced at the time a really big group in Nashville. So we go in. He's got his players and the head of creative from Leo Burnett. So they're in there. I don't know anything about the dynamics or whatever, but all I do know is this song is sounding like a country song with this fantastic R&B singer, and it's just like
It's perfect.
It's not good.
Oh, it's not good.
Oh, no.
I'm like,
because
perfect.
it's like, you know, they're playing it. It's written in the wrong rhythm, and the charts weren't right. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, you know, I'm this little peep. Just I might as well have been serving coffee or something. I'm just in the back. So the guy from Burnett was like, damn it, you know. No, he said, it needs to be blah, 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 blah. They would try it again, he would tell the producer. So he was getting very, very frustrated. And these players, it just was not translating because it wasn't written on the page. And the guy that was producing it was country, so it wasn't translating to him.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, they took a break because the guy at Burnett just said, you know, and he was a big guru. He was like the head of all creative, Burnett. So I'm out at the coffee pot getting a cup of coffee, and he's out there, and he's just flustered and beside himself and frustrated. And he goes, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know. And he said, I don't know how to fix this thing. And I said in this little voice, I do. And he was like, huh? I said, I know how to fix it. And he kind of, in a respectful, not disrespectful way, kind of snickered a little bit. You know, it's like, really? You know how to fix it? And I said, yeah, I know how to fix it. And he said, hang on a minute. So he goes out and gets sheet music. He walks back out. He says, well, fix whatever you do on there. I said, well, it's mainly just the rhythm. I said, a few chords need to change, but mainly the rhythm. He said, well, just change it. Let me see. Changed it. Went out there and played it. He said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Well, they record. I didn't get anything.
Wow.
You know, but the spot happened. So he asked me to go to dinner that night. So I went to dinner, and we became friends. And he said to me, I can't use you. He said, I really need you, and I like you, and you're really good. But I can't use you in Nashville because I've been using this guy for decades. We're like family. But if you ever move to L.A., I'll keep you busy.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I'll take you up on that. Within a year, I had ended up moving to L.A., and I called him. Yeah. And he stayed true to his word. And so through him, I became good friends also with the CEO. And it was and then the CEO was the guy that night at Burnett. We became good friends. We did a lot of business together. And they respected me. They respected my work, and they respected me as a musician. And, you know, look, you know, they weren't going in going, oh, I'm going to see if I can change this lesbian, you know, or whatever. So it wasn't like any kind of sexist thing like that. They just respected me. And I don't want to sound Pollyannish about that because I think there's millions of women who their work is incredibly wonderful, but they get looked at as a woman first.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was, I go in when I'm starting this new company, and this is after all these years that I've been producing stuff for them. And that's when I said to the CEO that night, I have an idea. And he said, what? And I had storyboards with me. And I said, let me show you my storyboards for United and what I want to do. And he picked up the phone that night and called the CMO at United and said, I want you to see somebody because they're going to make a big impact for you at United. I went in the next day, and United has been my client for many, 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 many years.
So you know what I was going to say, what I love about this to me, one of the things that I notice when we're out in the field working with entrepreneurs and business owners, but particularly women, you're expressing a confidence and a stamina and a boldness I think is missing sometimes, which prevents entrepreneurs and people that are starting businesses from moving forward. I mean, number one, when you had the opportunity to help someone who was in a desperate situation, you showed up and you delivered and you nailed it. So you were prepared for this, and you didn't have the fear to not walk up to this person and say, I can fix this. And so I think that is some kind of an intent inside that says, I'm going to make this work and it's going to happen no matter what. What's the worst that could happen? Someone's going to say no.
Well, this is what I've always said in speaking to women MBA programs and stuff, is that for whatever reason, I have always had the tenacity that whether it's meeting big stars, meaning music stars that would want to work with, or music industry people, and me at the time when I was a struggling songwriter or whatever, I would be like, oh my God, I want to meet them so bad, but what if they make fun of me, or what if they this, or what if they blah 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 blah. And then I would think to myself, what is the worst that can happen? And I would think, I can make a fool of myself. And I thought, well, I do that about every day. So what's the big deal? And I would just take a deep breath and go. And this is also what I tell young people, is that you may go and take that deep breath. And let's just paint a scenario here. I may meet that person and then walk away, and you may think, and they may think, I'll never see that person again. And you think, well, what good is that going to do me? Well, what good it does you is because if I'm in Philadelphia and this person is eating in a restaurant and I see them, and I can stop by then again and say, oh, hey, so-and-so, I just wanted to say hello. Remember we met in New York that day when you were speaking at Google, or whatever it may be. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. Yeah, oh, well, good to see you. And then life goes on. Then the next time you see that person, whatever, guess what then? All of a sudden, they feel like they know you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you say, hey, I know we've run into each other a few times. I'd really like to be able to come in. And back then, everybody used to, it was not over email, but it was like, come in and meet you, or can you give me your assistant's number? It always worked.
Yep.
Because you all of a sudden have a familiarity. And not that you stalk somebody, but seriously, for me, it was just like, I would randomly see somebody, or I would randomly know that they were going to be speaking at something, and I would go, but I'd already met them.
Right.
And then I'd meet them again. But it's about networking, and it's about not being afraid to, go up and talk to people. And I just really believe if you come in and show me, I have an idea for me that is the missing link on the Rubik's Cube for a particular area in music. I don't care who you are or what you look like or where you come from. I go, oh my God, I need to talk. Yes, let's talk. I think that it's about being respected in what you do, and about realizing too that everybody's not going to like every idea you have. And as far as songwriter, I think it's It's the greatest school you could go to because you get rejected.
So much rejection.
So much rejection. Just like an actor. You get so much rejection before you get a yes.
Mm-hmm.
Were you ever kind of hesitant about putting your work out there first? Because what it sounds like you're saying to me is that you had an opportunity to show what you could do. For instance, at that McDonald's thing, and you said, I'll do it. And you didn't think twice about whether or not you'd get credit for it or not. You were kind of planting a seed.
I didn't care.
Right.
I didn't care because, I would have blown it if I'd have said, okay, so what am I getting for this?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, no, because I just had an opportunity to prove myself to the head of creative of one of the world's major agencies. And he was either going to like it or he wasn't. Maybe I would have never seen him again. Mm-hmm. But he did because I helped him out in a pinch and because I knew what I was doing. It would have been different if I had changed that chart.
And it wasn't good.
And it wasn't good. I'm sure I would have never seen him again.
Yeah.
I'm sure he wouldn't have asked me to dinner that night.
Mm-hmm.
There would be nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. The other piece around this, though, too, Tena, is you were paying attention, you were listening, and you were aware of your surroundings to see the opportunity in front of you. And I think that there are entrepreneurs that don't have that vision. You did talk about vision earlier when we were talking to you. How did you get the ability to have the vision and see, or is this something that have you always had your spidey tentacles up to sort of know what's happening, or did you develop this over time? Because I think that's a challenge for a lot of people, especially in today's environment where technology is moving so quickly that it's hard for people to keep up. And if you're not listening to every single thing that's going on every minute, you miss some things.
Well, I mean, it is a totally different time now, and there's just so much information overload. And I think it's easy to get confused. I think it's easy to second guess. And I think that you just have to go, yes, you've got to be educated in what you want to do. When educated, I mean, my feeling is that you've got to do your homework. I think that would be the best thing. You've got to do your homework and be relevant in whatever sector it is that you're trying to get across or sell or whatever. At the same time, you got to go with your gut. Because anytime I have not gone with my gut, I have been wrong. And I have regretted it. And it doesn't mean I've completely learned how to do it. But I try to listen to my gut and listen to something. Even if it's somebody I'm doing business with, if I don't have a good feeling about that person, I should listen to that. Instead of saying, oh, no, whatever. Because there's a reason that something just, it doesn't sit right.
Wow. You know what? That is such a hard lesson, Tena, for entrepreneurs, especially that are strapping. That are broke, that are really struggling.
Well, let me tell you, I was scrappy. I mean, not starting DMI, I wasn't, but as a songwriter, when I moved to LA, I was living off of nothing. I mean, I could barely pay the rent. I just had enough to get through the month, but I was tenacious.
Okay.
And if I was on the Warner Brothers lot, and I was sitting in a meeting and I was able to hear something about a need over here of this and that, I can do it. Yeah. I can do it. And maybe half the time I had never done it before in my life, but I knew I had the confidence inside of me to know, yes, I can do that. I just need to make some phone calls. I need to do a little homework, and I know I can do it. I mean, anything with the music and the business of music, I am fairly confident in, and been there, done that, pretty much seen it all. And I have a million stories, but it's just about, I find with women, it's particularly, I mean, there's men like this too, but it's kind of like, in politics and with issues and things where you say, those that are complacent are those that are just as guilty as those who are doing the opposite. It's the same thing. You can't sit there and moan and groan about how you're not getting a break. You can't sit there and moan and groan about, well, I was rejected and I was rejected. I was rejected. You got to get out there and hustle. And I mean hustle in I'm saying that respectfully,
Yeah.
But, I've always been a networker and a hustler for what I believe in. So, it's just about it's also about what I have found, I think I have the hardest time with now is being able to focus, because I have, for me personally, where I am in life, I have so many opportunities coming at me that, and I don't mean that in a braggy way at all, but they may all look shiny and pretty.
Yeah.
But you really have to weed out that apple cart, because my daughter gets on to me about this, and my partner does, because I used to say yes to everything because I wanted to help people. You know, oh, I need you to come and will you come speak at such and such? Or will you come and do this or that? I go, oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Mm. Well, obviously, I don't do that anymore, but I have a hard time saying no. And I think in general, too, that's the issue that maybe is more gender specific of just saying no because you feel like you want to help that person or you want to help that cause. But what happens for me is I start going down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And when I go down rabbit holes, all of a sudden I wake up and I've lost I've left the road of what my true passion is. I'm off into other people's passions.
That reminds me of something that you were talking about in an interview I watched of yours when you were talking about your father specifically, because when you start getting all these opportunities, you're flooded with opportunities. It's almost like you have these golden handcuffs on, right? Because you could do everything everyone wants you. So you were talking in an interview about your father coming to you and saying, if you leave this, you can have all of this money and you can have my oil business if you just run it, right? And you had a moment where you had to say, I actually want to do this. But then at the same time, even in doing what you would be doing, which is you had an artist management business at a point before, you talked about not being able to access your creativity and that being the reason. So that was another moment where you had to go back to what your true self was. What was that conversation with yourself like?
Well, it was serious, but it was quick because it's that conversation, like I always say, my daddy wasn't the devil and I wasn't Jesus Christ, because it was like that looking at the mountain, you know, saying you can have all of this. And I know that he did that out of the goodness of his heart, and he worried about me. He couldn't stand that I lived in California, and where all the beatniks live.
Is that what he used to say?
Yep.
Where all the beatniks lived.
And he wanted me out of California. He wanted me back in Mississippi. Mm. And I knew it was coming from a good place. And believe me, it's tempting for anybody, for any of y'all, for any of us, if your parent said, you know what, I know you've been in Chicago for a while now, chasing your dreams.
Come back.
But, you know, you got a mortgage. Yep. You got some debt. You've got blah, blah, blah. You come over here and run my business for me. I'll pay off all your credit cards. I'll pay off your mortgage. I'll buy you a house here. You buy a house here. I'll pay for it. I'll give you a great salary. You'll be golden. You have to think about that. I thought about it all of maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And I was in such shock, first of all. And then second of all, I just knew, you know, and I just started saying to him how grateful I was. First thing I said is how thankful I am and how honored I am that you would want me to do this. And I know that it means the world to you. But I would have to sell my soul. And I said, I could not move back to that little town in Mississippi. And I said, and I couldn't do music. I don't know anything else but music, Daddy. I said, I don't know anything else. And I don't want anything else but music. And I said, and then as I started saying it, it started pissing me off, because then I started thinking,
I'm getting chills.
Yeah. And then I started thinking, he doesn't respect what I've accomplished.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't, because I was already successful. And he doesn't respect what I've accomplished or what I do every day. He just thinks
he doesn't believe you.
He doesn't believe me. He thinks it's silly stuff. Mm-hmm. And in his heart, he's trying to set me up so I'll be taken care of. but also he doesn't believe that what I do is worth anything. That's what I felt. So then I got pissed, and then I was like, and then I said to him, you obviously don't respect what I do and don't understand what I do. And he goes, oh, bullshit. And I said, but it doesn't fill me, Daddy. It doesn't fulfill me. Mm-hmm. That's bullshit. You sound like a girl talking now. That sounds like bullshit. That's what he would say.
Wow. Interesting.
And I said, I appreciate it very much. And I'm sorry, but I have to say no.
Wow. You have to be really self-driven, and that's something that really stands out about you. Yeah.
Because he walked away mad, and our relationship was never the same.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's tough to not follow along the path your parents want you to. I mean, it's always tough for any young person, to fight that. They're fighting it, even my own children.
Or just the obvious path.
Or the obvious path, the easy one.
The one that's like, well, here's the money.
Yeah.
I mean, most people, maybe not most, but I would say majority of people would take that offer.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the other thing is when I think about this in the context, of entrepreneurship, it's hard. So a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, they have a day job, and their entrepreneur is their side hustle, and to actually, take the time and have the courage to say no to the money train, to realize their dream, is literally the scariest proposition they could ever possibly think, especially coming from their home environment that says to them, doctors, lawyers, accountants, go work in finance. You could go work at Goldman Sachs and be like a billionaire. I mean, even the visuals on television, things like that. So, I mean, to turn that down, to basically say I'm turning down my trust fund because I want to live my life on my own terms, my own dream, it's a tough decision to make. And I feel like, as Esther just said, your confidence and bravery in general is something I would like to put in a little, little container and sprinkle it like fairy dust on me, because we all have challenges as small business owners and entrepreneurs, especially when we're in underrepresented and marginalized groups, because we don't have some of the fortune that you've had when you go into a room and even have the chance for someone to look at you and say, you can do that. I mean, to even get to the room alone is an absolute battle that some of us never have the opportunity to try to fight.
That's eye-opening, and it's riveting. And yes, I guess if I had ever really thought about that, I would know that. It's just, I have always been it's like, and I think this is the way I've thought of myself, is that I've always been a salmon swimming upstream. Whether it's my sexuality, whether it's my career. I was told I could never be anything in the music business, get out of the clouds, I'm saying by my dad, stop thinking about that ridiculous stuff, whatever. I never had his emotional support in any kind of way with that.
So where did you get it then? I mean, is this something that you feel like there's a God-given talent for you, or were you looking around and talking to people or reading books, or, I mean, what was happening?
I am hard-headed, and I'm a scrapper, and I just know, like, if I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. And you tell me I can't do it, it's like waving a red flag over here, And it's just how it's my DNA. It's just much to, I think, my mother's love and my father's, like, anger, because and a lot of times it's worked out for me, and sometimes it has not. But I just, and I'm still that way today. You tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to die trying. Yeah. And I just feel like that no matter what it was when I was growing up, you can't do that. Yeah. You can't play the drums. Oh, I'm going to play the drums. Yeah. Or even being.
You're saying, like it's familiar.
Yeah, even being gay and being told and being a pioneer that you can't have children. This was back in the 80s, same-sex couples can't have children. It's against the law and da-da-da-da, and the infertility clinics won't inseminate same-sex couple. Really? Okay.
I'm gonna have a ton of kids.
Yeah, so we're gonna have kids.
I'm gonna be the
kids.
one.
Something that I really wanted to get your thoughts on is something that I saw when I was reading about your company, because we're talking about sound, which is not something that I think about outside of podcasts and just listening to music. But it's not something that comes to a lot of people's mind when they think about branding. But it's so present that it's almost like it just becomes part of the landscape and you forget that it's there. And when you describe what your company does on the website, it says loyalty is brought by emotion, and the easiest way to do that is through music. That is like flipped a switch in my head. I was like, that makes perfect sense. Where do you see, because we're in the age of things like podcasting, right, where everything is so accessible, and everyone's like telling everyone else you should start a podcast because people, your book, several people said, I listened to it on audiobook, because it's something that meets you where you are and you can do other things and it can be just there in the atmosphere. How do you see the evolution of sound playing into branding as we're moving forward into this age where everything is immersive and experiential? Are you seeing anything changing from your perspective of, being on that bigger brand side?
Well, I just feel that in what we preach every day and are out there preaching and selling, and I'm selling it because, and we do it a lot because I feel like we're experts in it, and I feel like I know it like the back of my hand, and that is that we trademarked years ago sound DNA.
Yeah.
And we create your sound DNA. Mm-hmm. And so with the brand, we go in and if you do, and we have T-shirts that say no random acts of music, but if you're a brand and, you're doing this music over here for this pop-up event, you're doing this music over here for this concert, you're using this music over here for your commercial, and then you're using this music over here for your whatever, your in-store, you are all over the place. And not only are you all over the place and confusing your consumer or not even touching them at all, but you're wasting a truckload of money. I always use the example of McDonald's. If you get a new CMO or you get a new ad agency, do you think that McDonald's is going to say, if the ad agency or the creative at the brand at the new CMO says, I think those golden arches need to be purple now. Yeah, I do too. That would never happen. Of course, because they have brand equity in those golden arches. Nobody has to say McDonald's. Nobody has to do anything. You can be a mile away and see those golden arches, and you know that that's McDonald's. If you can see it on TV, you can whatever. But brands don't treat music that way or sound that way. The audio corridor, they don't treat the same way as a visual corridor. And it says equally from all the study we've done and all the research, and we have massive amounts on it over the years, it is equally important, but is such a miss because what happens is you have so many, everybody's an expert in music now. I always say when I'm talking about DMI, you can walk here at Google and you can walk around to all the cubicles. Everybody's going to be an expert curator. They've got their own playlist. They do this and that. Everybody's an expert music person, expert curator. But I tell brands, it doesn't matter what you like or what you listen to or what your daughter likes or what, because everybody tries to be, I find a lot of times at the agencies, people go, oh, well, my daughter says it such and such. Well, I don't really care what your daughter likes or your sister or your wife or whatever, because I'm not selling to them. It is about your consumer. And what we do is we figure out geographically and every other way, from geographically to demographically, who that person is, day parts, what they're doing at certain times of day, when, where, in the store, yada, yada, and or whatever that promotion may be. And we're targeting instead of shooting with, a wide spray of something.
Wow.
We're shooting very, very narrow so that we have a better chance of reaching that consumer emotionally.
Wow, I love all the data analysis you're bringing up, and this is all happening in your head. This isn't a Google search.
Yeah.
You're like Google.
Yeah.
You're like Google, Tena. So you started off with one person, two people, 3, 4, 5. What happened? You started small, then you scaled. What was that process like? Was it easy for you? Was it hard? When did you realize I need more people? I'm just sort of looking for the journey from your beautiful ability to monetize your creativity, which is what this is, and make it a business and sustain other people's lives. Because you have a lot of people working for you, and you also work for a lot of people. So how did you get to that bigger place?
Well, it's just the company started growing. I started out with an assistant and one person I hired.
Wow.
And this person, I felt like, I didn't know where this was going, but I knew that somebody needed to be able to logistically be able to keep up with all the stuff that was happening with the brand and what we were doing.
A wrangler.
This was all in my head. So I had these interviews. I had enough money to hire one person, and other than an assistant. And the person I hired, who ended up being fantastic and stayed with me for the first, 17, 18 years.
Oh my gosh.
She ran logistics for a trucking company. And so all she did all day long, because I needed somebody at the time, we were pressing CDs. You got to realize
you were pressing CDs? Like by hand?
No. I'm saying we were
making them
selling
in-house?
CDs.
Oh, you were selling CDs.
We're selling CDs.
Because I knew people that used to make them too, though. They would actually make them.
No, we were selling CDs. So I had to have somebody bidding that stuff out because everything is down to the half cents.
Right.
And being able to track all that, being able to ship it, being able to get it where it's supposed to be at Barnes and Nobles, at this, at that, blah, 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 blah. Because we were our own everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we had a record label doing it. We were shipping all the merchandise. We were doing. So anyway.
And this was, when was this happening? What year was that around?
97.
Goodness gracious. Okay.
So.
Wow.
I hired off the whim. This woman came in. I could tell she was really smart. She had been doing trucking logistics for like 20 years, but she was tired of it and wanted to do something else. But she was like a drill sergeant, and could tell she was like take no prisoner and really good. And I thought, well, she doesn't know the music business, but I can teach her that because I don't know what she does. And she stayed with me for the first, like I said, probably 17, 18 years. And then it just started growing. And then the woman that came in who had been at a label, I needed somebody to be a receptionist at the front. They had tiny little offices, but be a receptionist front. So she came out and she was working at A&M, but she liked what she heard I was doing, but she did not want to commute anymore to the other side of LA. And she wanted to be able to stay in Pasadena. And she said, I want to come to work for you. And I said, well, the only thing I have is a receptionist. We're tiny. Mm-hmm. It's just 2 other people and myself. And she goes, okay, I'll take it. And I go, you're way overqualified. You were over singles at this label, big label. And she was like, no, I want it. Well, she started with me and she ended up becoming, I supported her going and getting her HR degree and stuff. She ended up becoming the head of HR. Wow. And she was with me about the same amount of time, 18 years. But we grew, and we grew fairly quickly over the years. And then I started to say fatal flaw. It wasn't fatal, but a big mistake I made was when companies started outsourcing a lot and not having everything all right there, I just didn't know that world, and that world scared me. So I wanted everything right there under the roofs of our campus, which at that time were about 20,000 square feet. I wanted everybody right there. I wanted everybody to come to work every day. I wanted to be able to walk around those buildings and see everybody doing what we were doing.
That's always a challenge for entrepreneurs and small business owners because, we look for clones, not compliments. And then when you look for clones, sometimes you get distracted because they're not actually helping you build the way it needs to be built. And then sometimes you start thinking, everybody starts thinking the same. So that is sometimes problematic. And I'm not sure when I hear your story, if some of the people that you're working for were strategizing with you the way that you strategize with yourself. Because maybe was that happening at all? Because I know when I think about the way Esther and I work, because I love your story around this because, I think very similarly to some of the work that Esther does for my company, Birk Creative, she has the ability to create strategies in her head that are different than my strategies, but we're kind of moving in the same direction. That's really helpful. And we talk about it a lot. I'm kind of curious, you said your quote unquote fatal mistake was not starting to outsource. What was the conversation happening with these three amazing people, these two women that you brought in that actually helped you blow the business up? Was it conversations that weren't taking place, or what are some of the things that led you to that fatal flaw stuff? Because that sounds like a decision that you made alone.
It's not a decision I made alone because I had a lot of close women friends that ran big companies that would say to me, Tina, really, you don't outsource that? Or really, why do you want to have all those employees? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a lot. I'm not saying I'm a tiny little ship compared to big companies. I had at the most employees I ever had, it was like 85.
I mean, Tina, really, 85? What I loved about Tina's first hires is that she hired two women as her first hires.
This is a funny story, too. The first 17 people I hired were women.
Yes,
oh, wow.
Yes.
And so people that I did business with and, that I knew, and that a lot of my friends and stuff were going, Tina, do you realize you have all women? And I would say, no, I didn't really think about that. And then somebody would laugh and joke and go, well, of course she has all women. She's a lesbian.
Oh, goodness
and
gracious.
I would be, oh, my God, that is so wrong on so many levels. And they go, well, why would you hire only women? I said, because every time I would interview.
So the best ones.
Yeah, that's what I would say. It was the truth.
Yeah.
That process never crossed my mind. When people would come in and interview with me, it was like I would just choose who I thought was the best person for the job. It had nothing to do with gender. But then as we grew and got bigger, then it evened more out,
right.
And I say it probably even went the other direction some, but the first 17 were women.
Wow. Yeah. Since when she started scaling, it kind of changed a little bit.
I like that you were also able to see, especially with your first hire, because something very difficult for people is making good hiring decisions.
Yep.
And oftentimes the person...
I made some bad ones, though, too.
I'm sure, right? The person that seems good on paper or doesn't seem good on paper doesn't always work out in practice, because here you are, you're running a music company, but the person who ended up working for you came from the trucking industry. And, on paper, that doesn't make logical sense, but there's some discernment there where you're able to be like, these are transferable skills that are going to fit into what I'm able to see.
I needed an air traffic controller,
Gotcha.
and that's what she was.
Exactly.
Yeah, you were clear on what you needed. Interesting. So talk to me about times when you felt like you were in a rut, because you've talked a little bit about realizing, you're just running your business, putting out fires, being the operator, and you're not able to do the thing that you love. That's the thing that keeps you going. what other moments have you been in a rut? How did you recognize it, and how did you get out of it?
There were probably 3 pivotal points. One was way back in the day when I was in Mississippi and when I was trying to get to Nashville and to write. And a guy at a studio that I respected said to me, "Tina, you know every band and every club because you've played it between Texas and North Carolina." And he said, "You should start a booking agency. It's all cash. Everybody likes you because they want somebody honest, and there's nobody honest in the agency business." So I said, okay. So I rented a little room. It's about the size of a bathroom and the bottom in the boiler room of a club. And I got 2 out-of-work musicians, and I put 3 telephones on the table. They were dial telephones at the time. And we sat there and started dialing for dollars. Well, fast forward 5 years, because all I was trying to do was get to Nashville with some money in my pocket to be able to write full-time. Fast forward 5 years, I have a house that's paid for on a golf course at a country club. I have a BMW. I say this because it's funny. And I was, in my 20s. And I got a call from a band that was broken down on the road at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I remember I just laid in bed and thought that night, what am I doing? I have golden handcuffs on. I have sold my soul. Yeah, I'm making a lot of money. My daddy's happy with what I'm doing. But I am booking bands. I have an agency. I sold my house that week. Because, in Mississippi back then, somebody wanted to buy it. You said, yeah, you shook hands. They gave you the money. Then you signed a contract, and that was it. You moved out. And I moved to Nashville.
What kind of a world is this, Tina? Yeah. Oh my God!
I guess you live here now.
What in the world? It's like
so. I moved
amazing.
I moved to Nashville, and I never looked back. And I sold my company too.
Wow.
And anyway, that was the first moment.
That was one.
Because I said, "Oh my God, what have I done?" Second moment was in LA when I first started having a lot of success in TV and writing and producing music for television. And I was doing 3 series at one time. And there, once again, I had climbed that rat barrel to be successful in LA when I went there making no money and then became a successful TV composer, producer, music director. I was making a lot of money and I thought, okay, I could retire when I'm 40, have a big house in Beverly Hills. That's not who I am. I came here to write for records. I came here to be a record songwriter and producer. And I'm sitting here mindlessly with no creativity anymore, just churning out like a music machine. Music because I got 3 shows going at one time. I got to get out of this rat wheel. And most importantly, my daughter was 2 years old. I was barely seeing my daughter. I was barely getting any sleep. So I walked away from that business, and that was huge. That was a big jump because I just went from making a crap load of money to nada. And
that's 2.
That's 2. And then the third one was when I jumped off and then I had my first hit with Dionne Warwick. And then anyway, everything started going uphill from that. But it was tough for about 2 years. And then the third was when I left mainstream music business because of this idea of this company, DMI.
Wow.
And I left. People thought I was crazy. They were like, Tina, you can't leave and then come back. It doesn't work that way. Because you're out of sight, out of mind. Everything that you've worked for and all these artists you were writing and producing for and blah, 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 blah. You're committing suicide. You can't do this. And I was like, it's going to go away. And y'all just aren't seeing it. This is going to go away. You better recreate yourself.
I love it.
And I jumped off that ship and I started DMI. and now DMI has been around for 22 years.
Wow.
And DMI is, I have great people there now. We outsource pretty much, 2/3 of everything. And most people work from home now, and not everybody, but most people do. And, it's fine with me now. I have evolved. I am not a, micromanager. But it's also allowed me now to do the things creatively that I have been missing, like writing this book. Right. And like creating some film and TV projects, and doing my, being able to spend time with my social activism.
I mean, you've had so many pivots.
Yeah.
In your career.
But it's about knowing.
Yeah.
It's like knowing when to move.
Yeah.
It's about knowing when to get out and change.
And you did say earlier, though, that you are very in touch with your gut instincts, which I think many people through their desperation, whatever that desperation is for them, they don't pay attention to that. And so I think about my own career and the way that I built it from when I got out of college and started working in corporate. Every decision I made was looked upon as, is this going to get me to my next step or not? If it's not, then I got to get out right now. And it wasn't so much your vision of I don't see the future here. It was more like mine was more about, I have to create a future, and everything I do has to be in that direction, even if I didn't know exactly what my future was.
No, but that's smart.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think that I had a choice. I mean, I feel like given, my environment and the world that I was living in, which at the time was very, very corporate, not dissimilar from my clients now, but now I have my own company with Birk Creative, but working in spaces where there weren't any women, there weren't any people of color except in the mailroom. And so I just had to be very, very intentional and forceful about the type of work that I was doing every moment. And I had to develop relationships that were relevant, that I knew would help me, and that were authentic. I looked for authentic relationships everywhere I turned. We would love to know, who are some of the amazing musicians you work with? I mean, you've been behind the scenes, which is also something hard for entrepreneurs to live with. They want to be in the front, and we do live.
I've never wanted to be the lead singer.
I know we're in a
No.
We're in a performance culture now. So even if you're behind the scenes, a lot of entrepreneurs are still now required to be in the front because people want to know who they're buying from, right? But that's another conversation. Maybe we're going to have you come back for a podcast too with Tina Clark, but. Or maybe we'll help you launch your own podcast series, and we'll be behind the scenes and you'll be in the front. We do want to know name some of the artists that you've worked with that are like absolutely.
You just breezed over Dionne Warwick.
I know you did.
That's
what triggered me.
I don't want to let you. I don't want to make you lose your train of thought. But you're like, I had my first hit with Dionne Warwick, and I'm like,
what first hit? I'm like, she can't just go by that and not share. So tell us.
I didn't even know. Y'all probably knew at your age who Dionne Warwick.
I have Dionne Warwick on vinyl. I have Dionne Warwick on vinyl.
Dionne is amazing.
So just. Like running.
Okay, I'll just run you a list just off the top of my head.
We're here, everybody. We're here with the Tina Clark. So go ahead.
Dionne Warwick, Kayla Bell, Gladys Knight, Stephanie Mills, Yolanda Adams, Aretha Franklin, Natalie Cole, Shaka Khan, Patty Austin, Leanne Rimes. I've written the theme song for NASA.
That's right.
What is NASA's theme song? Is it just?
It's called Way Up There. Called Way Up There.
And then NASA, and then
Kayla Bell. Google it. Listen to it.
And then also, you wrote something for McDonald's too. One of their famous songs.
Have you had your break today?
Have you had your break today?
What was
the United
wrote
Airlines?
Hillary Clinton's. The State Department had commissioned me to write her theme song for all the work that she had done with women and her legacy piece. I have written for movies, everything from Hope Floats to Where the Heart Is to... oh my God.
It's so much. It is like a smorgasbord.
My
best friend's wedding.
Oh, it's one of my favorite movies.
Twins, et cetera, et cetera. That was back in the day.
Stunning. And then you've also won Grammys
With Natalie Cole.
Wow.
And
how is that? I mean, that's incredible.
And nominated for the thing I wrote and produced on Patty for NASA. And anyway, yeah, it's been
a lot.
It's been an amazing journey. It continues to be, because so many of these women I am still very good friends with, and obviously I was devastated when Natalie passed. I was devastated when Aretha passed, and they were monumental figures in my career. I originally went to L.A. in the 70s with Stevie Wonder. And then Hal David is who took me under his wings.
I mean,
when I actually moved to L.A., Hal David and Birk Bacharach.
Sure.
So, there's a lot to talk about. That's going to be my second book.
I cannot wait to do that.
Which is going to be my journey in the music business as a white, Southern, gay female.
Did you hear that?
Don't forget Christian.
Christian, white, Southern, gay, Christian, female.
With an excellent haircut.
That's going to be my... And this is the first place I've said that.
And what are you working on now? What's the new piece? What is your new exciting thing that you can tell us about that you're working on that you're really excited about?
Well,
I mean, aside from the fact that you're working on a new book, but what's the other?
Well, I haven't started working on the book yet, but that's what the next book will be.
Okay.
I just finished working on a documentary that I was asked to write the theme song for, that I'm really proud of. It's called Clarkston, and it's in Georgia. It's about this little tiny area right in the outskirts of Atlanta. And if you Google it and look at it, you'll see, but it's the most refugees in any particular square miles of anywhere in the country. And it is about how all of these people from all of these dozens and dozens and dozens of countries live together, work together, pray together, and they all get along, and they all respect each other's beliefs and faiths. It's amazing. This documentary is amazing. It's is directed and created by Aaron Bernhardt, and so I wrote this theme song, which is called "We Belong." Debbie Allen and I have worked together for years, and she is my sister. And we're starting a new production company.
Debbie Allen, you're starting a production company with Debbie Allen?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Esther.
And, I'm just looking at the shoes. Sorry.
And it's wow. And it's about projects that are going to move the mind, heart, and soul, you know?
Yep.
And it's all about, TV and film projects and live theater projects too.
Wow.
That move you.
I mean, I think that, one of the joys I have in listening to your conversation is that you're making all these bold moves on an ongoing, sustained basis, and you're not stopping.
You're a force.
You're a force. You're not stopping. You're not giving up.
I can only hope. And you look great.
Exactly.
Thank you.
There's just so much. There's so much to learn. I feel like you could write a book, not just this beautiful Southern Discomfort, a memoir, by Tina Clark Yu, and not about your second book, about all the successes and accolades you've received in the music business, but you could write a book that would be a training manual for, how to make it as an entrepreneur and how to pivot multiple times and still keep moving forward and still keep transforming and changing and evolving. Because this is a conversation that needs to be had over and over again with entrepreneurs. And that's why we are so glad that you came on our podcast.
Well, thank you.
I can't even express.
It's been amazing, and I'm excited to come back and do another one, and I'll be in the audience clapping when y'all win some big podcast awards.
Yes, we'd love to do that.
We keep having conversations like this.
I know, right? And if
good luck, ladies. I have full faith in y'all on so many levels.
I'm so glad. And for any listeners that have any follow-up questions for Tina Clark, for Miss Clark, we will absolutely get them to her, and she will send the answers back, and we will post them on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and it'll be great.
Send us a message on Instagram, Honest Field Guide.
Absolutely, the Honest Field Guide. So thank you very much, Tina and Esther. This has been a tremendous conversation.
Wow, it's been amazing. I've
Right?
learned so much, and this is great. I hope we get to have more awesome conversations like this, but what a way to start it. I mean, we really set the bar with this one.
We did set the bar, Tina. Yay!
All right, thank you so much. I'm Esther Ikoro.
And I'm JinJa Birkenbeuel.
And we'll see you next time. The Honest Field Guide podcast is produced by Birk Creative, written and created by JinJa Birkenbeuel and Esther Ikoro. The podcast is recorded in the innovation and technology capital of the Midwest, Chicago, at Stomping Ground Studios in Ukrainian Village.
Original music is written by and provided courtesy of Utah Carol. Follow Honest Field Guide on Instagram and Twitter. The opinions expressed on the Honest Field Guide are opinions only and only represent the views of JinJa Birkenbeuel and Esther Ikoro.